Morning, everyone. Welcome to Think and Grow New Rich, online study group dedicated to unprogramming from lack and poverty consciousness by reading the book Think and Grow Rich from Napoleon Hill. It's actually written nearly 100 years ago, but it's amazingly relevant even today. Hi, Geraldine.
Hi.
How are you?
Good, good.
Cool. It's and we've got Glenn coming in as well. Hey, Glenn.
Morning. Morning, all.
Morning. Yeah, so yesterday we were reading chapter 13, which is all about brain broadcasts. Actually, I think we've moved on to chapter 14 now. Yeah, we are. The sixth sense, the door to the temple of wisdom.
Yeah.
So this is one of my personal favorites.
Yeah, I've been thinking about the panel, like you were mentioning there, the panel, right? How would you design your panel so that it reaches towards what you're aiming for, right?
Yeah, exactly. For anyone who doesn't know what we're talking about, basically in yesterday's reading, we looked at how Napoleon actually had a invisible panel meeting every night with spirits, essentially, with the ghosts of men that he had admired and that he most looked up to. And so he did this for many years, and he's talking about how everyone is basically quite telepathic, so we can talk to, infinite intelligence as well as other people. So it's fascinating, isn't it? Yeah. Would either of you like to read? Or?
Well, Geraldine, how would you like that?
I don't mind at all. Otherwise, I can. I would just whatever you guys want to do.
I don't want to read it today, Sandy. I just, yeah, I'm a bit clumsy, but not in the mood.
Yeah, sure. Okay, cool. I'll share my screen and get going. There we go. Okay, screen share. All right, so we're on page 195 and building character through autosuggestion. Okay. So, being an earnest student of psychology, I knew, of course, that all men have become what they are because of their dominating thoughts and desires. I knew that every deeply seated desire has the effect of causing one to seek outward expression through which that desire may be transmuted into reality. I knew that self-suggestion is a powerful factor in building character, that it is, in fact, the sole principle through which character is built. With this knowledge of the principles of mind operation, I was fairly well armed with the equipment needed in rebuilding my character. In these imaginary council meetings, I called on my cabinet members for the knowledge I wished each to contribute, addressing myself to each member in audible words, as follows. Mr. Emerson, I desire to acquire from you the marvelous understanding of nature which distinguished your life. I ask that you make an impression upon my subconscious mind of whatever qualities you possessed, which enabled you to understand and adapt yourself to the laws of nature. I ask that you assist me in reaching and drawing upon whatever sources of knowledge are available to this end. And I think that's Ralph Waldo Emerson he's talking about. Then Mr. Burbank, I request that you pass on to me the knowledge which enabled you to so harmonize the laws of nature that you caused the cactus to shed its thorns and become an edible food. Give me access to the knowledge which enabled you to make 2 blades of grass grow where but one grew before, and helped you to blend the coloring of flowers with more splendor and harmony, for you alone have successfully guided the lily. Napoleon Bonaparte, I desire to acquire from you, by emulation, the marvelous ability you possess to inspire men and women and to arise them to greater and more determined spirit of action. Also to acquire the spirit of enduring faith, which enabled you to turn defeat into victory and to surmount staggering obstacles. Emperor of fate, king of chance, man of destiny, I salute you. Mr. Paine, Thomas Paine, I desire to acquire from you the freedom of thought and the courage and clarity with which to express convictions which so distinguished you. Mr. Darwin, I wish to acquire from you the marvelous patience and ability to study cause and effect without bias or prejudice, so exemplified by you in the field of natural science. Mr. Lincoln, I desire to build into my own character the keen sense of justice, the untiring spirit of patience, the sense of humor, the human understanding, and the tolerance which were your distinguishing characteristics. Mr. Carnegie, I am already indebted to you for my choice of a life work which has brought me great happiness and peace of mind. I wish to acquire a thorough understanding of the principles of organized effort, which you used so effectively in the building of a great industrial enterprise. Mr. Henry Ford, you have been among the most helpful of the men who have supplied much of the material essential to my work. I wish to acquire your spirit of persistence, the determination, poise, and self-confidence which have enabled you to master poverty, organize, unify, and simplify human effort, so I may help others to follow in your footsteps. Mr. Thomas Edison, I have seated you nearest to me, at my right, because of the personal cooperation you have given me during my research into the causes of success and failure. I wish to acquire from you the marvelous spirit of faith with which you have uncovered so many of nature's secrets, the spirit of unremitting toil with which you have so often wrested victory from defeat. My method of addressing the members of the imaginary cabinet would vary, according to the traits of character in which I was, for the moment, most interested in acquiring. I studied the records of their lives with painstaking care. After months of this nightly procedure, I was astounded by the discovery that these imaginary figures became apparently real. Each of these 9 men developed individual characteristics, which surprised me. For example, Lincoln developed the habit of always being late and walking around in solemn parade. When he came, he walked very slowly, with his hands clasped behind him, and once in a while he would stop as he passed, and rest his hand momentarily upon my shoulder. He always wore an expression of seriousness upon his face. Rarely did I see him smile. The cares of a sundered nation made him grave. This was not true of the others. Burbank and Payne often indulged in witty repartee, which seemed at times to shock the other members of the cabinet. One night Payne suggested I prepare a lecture on the Age of Reason, and deliver it from the pulpit of a church I formerly attended. Many around the table laughed heartily at the suggestion. Not Napoleon. He drew his mouth down at the corners and groaned so loudly that all turned and looked at him with amazement. To him the church was but a pawn of the state, not to be reformed, but to be used as a convenient inciter to mass activity by the people. Living in France, I can say that's quite true. On one occasion, Burbank was late. When he came, he was excited with enthusiasm and explained that he had been late because of an experiment he was making, through which he had hoped to be able to grow apples on any sort of tree. Payne chided him by reminding him that it was an apple which started all the trouble between man and woman. Darwin chuckled heartily, as he suggested that Payne should watch out for little serpents when he went into the forest to gather apples, as they had the habit of growing into big snakes. Emerson observed, "No serpents, no apples," and Napoleon remarked, "No apples, no state." Lincoln developed the habit of always being the last one to leave the table after each meeting. On one occasion, he leaned across the end of the table, his arms folded, and remained in that position for many minutes. I made no attempt to disturb him. Finally, he lifted his head slowly, got up and walked to the door, then turned around, came back and laid his hand on my shoulder and said, "My boy, you will need much courage if you remain steadfast in carrying out your purpose in life. But remember, when difficulties overtake you, the common people have common sense. Adversity will develop." One evening, Edison arrived ahead of all the others. He walked over and seated himself at my left, where Emerson was accustomed to sit, and said, "You are determined to witness the discovery of the secret of life. When the time comes, you will observe that life consists of great swarms of energies, or entities, each as intelligent as human beings think themselves to be. These units of life group together like hives of bees, and remain together until they disintegrate through lack of harmony. These units have difference of opinion the same as human beings, and often fight among themselves. These meetings which you are conducting will be very helpful to you. They will bring to your rescue some of the same units of life which served the members of your cabinet during their lives. These units are eternal. They never die. Your own thoughts and desires serve as the magnet which attracts units of life from the great ocean of life out there. Only the friendly units are attracted, the ones which harmonize with the nature of your desires. The other members of the cabinet began to enter the room. Edison got up and slowly walked around to his own seat. Edison was still living when this happened. It impressed me so greatly that I went to see him and told him about the experience. He smiled broadly and said, "Your dream was more a reality than you may imagine it to have been." He added no further explanation to his statement. These meetings became so realistic that I became fearful of their consequences and discontinued them for several months. The experiences were so uncanny, I was afraid that if I continued them, I'd lose sight of the fact that these meetings were purely experiences of my imagination. Some 6 months after I had discontinued the practice, I was awakened one night, or thought I was, when I saw Lincoln standing at my bedside. He said, "The world will soon need your services. It is about to undergo a period of chaos, which will cause men and women to lose faith and become panic-stricken. Go ahead with your work and complete your philosophy. That is your mission in life. If you neglect it for any cause whatsoever, you will be reduced to a primal state and be compelled to retrace the cycles through which you have passed during thousands of years." I was unable to tell the following morning whether I had dreamed this or actually been awake, and I have never since found out which it was, but I do know that the dream, if it were a dream, was so vivid in my mind the next day that I resumed my meetings the following night. At our meeting, the members of my cabinet all filed into the room together and stood at their accustomed places at the council table, while Lincoln raised a glass and said, "Gentlemen, let us drink a toast to a friend who has returned to the fold." After that, I began to add new members to my cabinet. Until now it consists of more than 50, among them Christ, St. Paul, Galileo, Copernicus, Aristotle, Plato, Socrates, Homer, Voltaire, Bruno, Spinoza, Drummond, Kant, Schopenhauer, Newton, Conificus, I can never say his name, Albert Hubbard, Brann, Ingersoll, Wilson, and William James. This is the first time I have had the courage to mention this. Heretofore, I have remained quiet on the subject, because I knew, from my own attitude in connection with such matters, that I would be misunderstood if I described my unusual experience. I have been emboldened now to reduce my experience to the printed page, because I am now less concerned about what they say than I was in the years that have passed. One of the blessings of maturity is that it sometimes brings one greater courage to be truthful, regardless of what those who do not understand may think or say. Lest I may be misunderstood, I wished here to state most emphatically that I still regard my cabinet meetings as being imaginary, purely imaginary. But I feel entitled to suggest that while the members of my cabinet may be purely fictional, and the meetings exist only in my imagination, they have led me into glorious paths of adventure, rekindled an appreciation of true greatness, encouraged creative endeavor, and emboldened the expression of honest thought. Somewhere in the cell structure of the brain is located an organ which receives vibrations of thought, ordinarily called hunches. So far, science has not discovered where this organ of the sixth sense is located, but this is not important. The fact remains that human beings do receive accurate knowledge through sources other than the physical senses. Such knowledge generally is received when the mind is under the influence of extraordinary stimulation. Any emergency which arouses the emotions and causes the heart to beat more rapidly than normal may, and generally does, bring the sixth sense into action. Anyone who has experienced a near accident while driving knows that on such occasions the sixth sense often comes to one's rescue and aids by split seconds in avoiding the accident. These facts are mentioned preliminary to a statement of fact fact which I shall now make, namely, that during my meetings with the invisible counsellors, I find my mind most receptive to ideas, thoughts, and knowledge which reach me through the sixth sense. I can truthfully say that I owe entirely to my invisible counsellors full credit for such ideas, facts, or knowledge as I received through inspiration. On scores of occasions when I have faced emergencies, some so grave that my life was in jeopardy, I have been miraculously guided past these difficulties through the influence of my invisible counsellors. My original purpose in conducting council meetings with imaginary beings was solely that of impressing my own subconscious mind, through the principle of autosuggestion, with certain characteristics which I desired to acquire. In more recent years, my experimentation has taken on an entirely difficult trend. I now go to my imaginary counsellors with every difficult problem which confronts me and my clients. The results are often astonishing, although I do not depend entirely on this form of counsel. You, of course, have recognized that this chapter covers a subject with which a majority of people are not familiar. The sixth sense is a subject that will be of great interest and benefit to the person whose aim is to accumulate vast wealth, but it need not claim the attention of those whose desires are more modest. Henry Ford undoubtedly understands and makes practical use of the sixth sense. His vast business and financial operations make it necessary for him to understand and use this principle. The late Thomas Edison understood and used the sixth sense in connection with the development of inventions, especially those involving basic patents, in connection with which he had no human experience and no accumulated knowledge to guide him, as was the case while he was working on the talking machine and the moving picture machine. Nearly all great leaders such as Napoleon, Bismarck, Joan of Arc, a woman, Christ, Buddha, Confucius, and Muhammad understood and probably made use of the sixth sense almost continuously. The major portion of their greatness consisted of their knowledge of this principle. Okay, I'm going to stop there. The sixth sense, yeah, because there's still a bit more to go. And I have to leave bang on at quarter two today. Wow, what an amazing
Wow, yeah, it really is
amazing
amazing.
chapter.
Yeah,
But he had 50 counselors in the end.
yeah, yeah. Well, I've thought that too. That when you design this panel, that it will change over time too as you grow, right? As you grow, it should change over time.
Yeah.
And one that I would add onto that would be Saint Francis of Assisi. And if you've ever heard of the prayer of Saint Francis or wiki that, it's a wonderful prayer. And it isn't just a prayer. It's really about becoming more human too. If you read that, take a look at it. It's great. It's amazing. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Maybe you could put a link in the group. I've never. I'm a bit ignorant.
You know what? Come to think of it, I think I've got an image here which I could share. Right? You want to take
Oh,
a look
yeah.
at that? Let me see if I can do that.
Cool.
It's open there.
Does it make either of you want to create your own council, your own cabinet?
I don't know why it's. You know why it's not sharing, because it's just an image. But I guess if I go to Google, right? If I go to Google.
If you screen share, we should see exactly what you're seeing.
Yeah. I'm on screen share there.
And Geraldine, what were you going to say?
I was going to say, Joan of Arc was actually one of the people that I had chosen. Yeah, because it's funny, I was in New York and I saw this painting in the Metropolitan Museum in New York, and it just really spoke to me. And then years later, when I was going through a really tough patch and I just didn't think I had the strength and courage to get through it, I actually felt her presence all the time around me. So she is someone that I've kind of connected with in any way. So,
wow.
and it's funny because I didn't know anything about her, but then I did some research into her, and people just thought she was kind of insane, but she just had like such courage and faith, she fought loads of battles that people thought were impossible to win, and she just had no fear. She was just completely,
Yeah.
just believed God was with her, and yeah.
Oh wow. Oh, that's so inspiring.
Mm.
I love that. That's yeah, when you can feel someone in the room, like it's I've had that experience too. Even with Napoleon Hill at one time. I don't know if you, Glenn, it might have been before you were coming on the groups, but one about a month and a half ago, someone had sent me notes. Actually, I think we could read them after we finished this first reading of the book. They're like extra notes from lectures that Napoleon did. They're really interesting. And I was reading them because I couldn't sleep one night, and it was like late at night on a Saturday evening of all nights. And suddenly, I really felt like the spirit of Napoleon Hill was in the room. It was it's
Oh
like,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, so strong, like you described, Geraldine, with St. Joan. It was, like no doubt in my mind that it was.
Well, you talk about building the muscle too, right? And the creative
Yeah,
imagination is basically right, like building a muscle, building a,
yeah,
but it's at a much different level than a physical muscle, right? Right?
yeah,
It's and that's really what he was doing. I mean, imagine. I mean, he was able to create some fantastic interactions between his panel, even. I mean, that was pretty interesting.
yeah,
Very interesting.
yeah. And I can see how, and also what you said, Geraldine, it just reminded me of a couple of times when I felt really confused or down about something. It was actually just before Mandela died. Oh, and once or twice since. But I would just think about Nelson Mandela, and I have a picture of him up in my room, like on my vision board. And this energy would just kind of come through that was so peaceful and uh, like wise is the best way I can find to describe it. That it was almost like someone, like hugging a baby and reassuring them. And then the baby stops crying. They don't know why. It felt like that, like this kind of energy
Yeah.
came around me, and I felt so much better. And then even just like the next day, I was like, okay, renewed inspiration. Um, so imagine, like, we're talking about random experiences, but what Napoleon did was very systematic every night.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, imagine it could get very powerful if you're. Although I guess you don't want to just. He does say you don't want to just rely on that, and only talk to ghosts. But
Yeah, I'll put up a link on the. I found the wiki page on the Prayer of St. Francis. I'll put up a link on that on your thing there and take a look at it.
cool, thank you.
It's very powerful, and great people have used it as a as a kind of a devotional thing, as a spiritual thing in their growth. It's an amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and it makes me wonder as well, like how so you would tune into his spirit, of the saints, or
Yes, yeah, yes. Well, particularly if you well, now these words were attributed to him, and I think somebody had said that in the wiki article they explained that, well, actually it wasn't St. Francis. It doesn't go back that far, but it's such a beautiful inspiration that it's something that some people, even Bill Clinton, used it every day, and a lot of great people. It's really an amazing thing. Amazing.
yeah. Oh wow.
I'll put it up. Take a look at it.
Yeah. Cool.
I'll put up the wiki link, then people can go read it, right? Or maybe you can do that, Sandy. But why don't you do that? Why don't you wiki it and then put it up, right?
Yeah. Well, if you can post the link you found, then I can make it a post or you can post it directly in the group.
Yeah, because it's an interesting read too, the story of that.
Cool. Huh. So I wonder, like, how long he would speak to them. This is what I was wondering as I read. Like whether he would.
I don't know. How could you go to sleep after a meeting like that, right?
Yeah, right. Bye, Christ. Bye, Jesus. and Joan of Arc,
Yeah,
uh,
I mean, imagine.
Henry Ford.
Oh my goodness. Yeah,
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 but I guess there's only one way to find out is to
yeah,
actually
good.
do it. The only thing I found is that often when I go to sleep, I'm so tired that I just tend to go to sleep very quickly. So I can imagine like being like, I think I did try and do this once or twice. The first time I read it or I heard it on audiobook,
Yeah.
and then I would just kind of start doing it, and then I would just be, I'd fall asleep.
Yeah,
I
so
think,
it's something we've got to work at, I think, to,
yeah, exactly. But I sense that if it's something people really want to do, they can definitely do it.
Mm.
Um, in fact, I'm quite inspired now to really do it.
yeah,
Yeah.
give it a go, right?
Yeah, and I just find it really interesting because then you have, um, then you're getting. It's like he said that inspiration. It's like he became more aware of how inspiration really works because a lot of people think of inspiration as this kind of mysterious, happy feeling you have, and suddenly you get ideas,
Yeah,
and that's kind of like what happens. But he's basically giving us more awareness about some of the other stuff that happens behind the scenes, like where those ideas come from.
yeah,
Mm.
right.
and
Yeah,
and like when you realize that, then you can kind of become even better at it. I think it's like, like an athlete that works out how to make your body be able to run faster
yes, yeah.
through training it.
By visualizing, creating it. The
Yeah,
other interesting thing too is that I don't think your panel has to always be people that are gone, right? It can be somebody that's living, that's an
yeah,
inspiration to you, right? And why
yeah.
not? Because he did that basically with Edison had been living
Edison.
during part of the time that he did that.
Yeah, that was very interesting. Yeah,
Or somebody important in your life that guides you. I mean that you want to kind of emulate a little bit, right? Sure.
yeah,
You know,
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I found that sometimes I've done that. Like, what would this person say to me right now if they were here?
right?
And it's amazing the kind of awareness you suddenly get.
Yeah,
You know,
Mm.
yeah,
that's not just imaginary. Like
right.
he
Yeah.
says, these were the only thing I would disagree with is his terminology because he talks about he knew it was still his imagination. I
Yes.
would say it was his awareness. He was like
Mm.
perceiving
Yeah,
things.
operating at a higher level, right? On a higher level.
Yeah, because your imagination is still a function of your brain. That
Mhm.
would be him imagining it all. But
Mhm.
Mm.
maybe he just didn't dare to go all out and say he was tuning
Yeah,
into
cover,
it.
cover himself a little bit there.
Yeah.
But I found it very interesting when he was talking about during emergency situations that it's like a way of tapping into that sixth sense because I had an experience of it not so long ago where I was driving and I started driving really slow. I just got like slow down and I went from 100 kilometers down to 50 and didn't really know why.
Yeah.
And then a car came swerving over onto my side of the road and ended up turning over and going into the ditch. And
Yeah,
I was like,
Oh God.
yeah.
it was like, I really got,
Yeah,
that's why I had to slow down. But
Yeah.
what happened afterwards was that I was driving, like when I took care of the guy and got the ambulance and stuff. And then when I was driving home, it was like my awareness was so heightened, but not in a real red alert way, but just like I could see everything. And I found it really inspiring because I thought if I can do this now, I can choose to do this like every moment, just to be aware, really aware of everything around me, and tune into that sixth sense of trusting when I get like instead of a download, trust it, and yeah,
mhm,
That's
it's like
amazing, Geraldine. I remember when you posted that on Facebook, it gave me goosebumps just listening to you. And that's a really good point you just made that we don't have to just use it when we're about to die or have a serious accident. We can use it every day, like Napoleon was. And
mhm,
this is what I think is really cool about this chapter is he's giving us a one way. It's not the only one, but a very clear way that he used for several years to make that more of a daily um, like a daily thing.
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've had a similar experience just a few weeks ago, just a couple of months ago actually, where I was driving too, and or very similar to you, Geraldine. I suddenly got the urge to slow down. I didn't even realize I was slowing down, um, but suddenly I was, and suddenly a car pulled out. It backed out onto the road from the driveway, but onto a road which has, like a very high speed limit, and
Mm.
it was I almost wondered, oh my God, are they suicidal? Why would you do that? Because if I had been driving at the speed I was driving at, like you would have done, I would have
Mm.
hit them because they just backed straight and then they stopped. They didn't even back out and carry on moving. I literally had to like go onto the other side of the road to avoid them, and no one was coming in the other direction. But I thought, oh my God, I was obviously warned to slow down because someone saw that happening,
Mhm.
and that's happened a couple of times actually with driving stuff. So this has really inspired me actually, our conversation and reading to like really
Really?
tap in more.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it's like we're Clark Kent. We have this ability to do that, but we're just kind of always wearing the suit and the glasses.
Yeah, yeah,
I'm only wearing the Superman cape
yeah,
when our life depends on it.
that's true. Yeah, yeah, that's an imagination too, you know.
Yeah. Oh, I've just seen the time, guys. I have to really run.
Um,
But I'm really inspired after our session
yeah.
today. I'm
Mm.
going to make a list of people that I'd like to
Yeah,
have
me
in my
too.
cabinet. We can share them
Yeah.
if anyone else makes them.
You guys have a great day.
You too. Thanks for coming out, and thanks
Bye-bye.
for watching, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.